10 camels stand breathless at the edge of the known world. The wind howls, the sand stings, and one old servant stands in the wilderness with a mission that could change the future of an entire nation. He has traveled hundreds of miles searching for a woman he has never seen. He doesn't know her name. He doesn't know her face. He doesn't know whether she will come. But he knows one thing. He cannot return without her, because waiting for him in Canaan is Isaac, the son of the promise, a man drowning in grief, a man whose mother is dead, a man whose future is waiting somewhere beyond the desert. The wind howled outside the goat hair tents of Abraham's camp. Inside, the air was heavy with grief. Abraham was old. His eyes had grown dim with age, but his faith remained fierce. God had called him from his homeland. God had promised him descendants. God had given him Isaac when he and Sarah were already old. But now Sarah was gone. Her laughter had become a memory. Her tent was silent, and Isaac was broken. The promised son walked through the fields alone, carrying a grief too deep for words. Abraham knew something had to change. Isaac needed a wife, but she could not be just anyone. She had to come from Abraham's own kindred. So Abraham called his oldest and most trusted servant. The old man entered the tent and bowed. Abraham spoke, "Swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites. You will go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 3 to 4. The servant hesitated. "But what if the woman will not come with me?" Abraham answered with the confidence of a man who had spent his entire life trusting God. "The Lord will send his angel before you." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 7. The oath was sealed. The mission had begun. 10 camels were prepared. They were loaded with provisions, silver, gold, garments, and precious gifts from Abraham's house. The caravan moved away from Canaan. Behind them was everything familiar. Ahead lay hundreds of miles of wilderness. The sun beat down like a hammer. Dust clung to their clothes. The camels groaned beneath their loads. Day became night. Night became day. At night, the desert turned cold beneath a sky crowded with stars. And through it all, the servant had one question echoing in his mind. What if I fail? But he continued, because sometimes faith means taking the next step when you cannot see the road ahead. Finally, the long journey ended. The caravan reached Mesopotamia, near the city associated with Abraham's family. It was evening. The sun burned gold and crimson across the horizon. The city gates stood in the distance, and beside them, a well. The servant stopped. The camels dropped to their knees, exhausted. The old man climbed down. His lips were dry. His body was weary, but his greatest uncertainty was still ahead. Women would soon come to the well. How would he know which one was right? He could not choose by beauty alone. He needed to see her character. So he knelt beside the well and prayed, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please give me success today and show kindness to my master Abraham." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 12. Then he made a remarkable request. Let it be that the young woman to whom I say, 'Please let down your jar that I may drink,' and who says, 'Drink, and I will water your camels also,' let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 14. Giving water to one thirsty traveler was simple hospitality, but offering to water 10 thirsty camels? That required strength, patience, selflessness. The servant finished praying, and then he looked up. A young woman was walking toward the well. Her name was Rebekah. She carried a water jar on her shoulder. She moved with quiet confidence. The fading sunlight touched her face. She was beautiful, but the servant was about to discover something far more important than her appearance. Rebekah reached the well. She lowered her jar. The servant stepped toward her. "Please give me a little water from your jar." She stopped. She looked at the exhausted stranger. His clothes were covered in dust. His lips were dry, and without hesitation, she lowered her jar. "Drink, my lord." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 18. The servant drank, but he kept watching. Then Rebekah looked toward the camels. 10 enormous animals stood exhausted beside the well, and she said, "I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 19. The servant froze. She had said exactly what he had prayed, but she didn't merely say it. She did it. She emptied her jar into the trough, then returned to the well. She drew more, and poured again, and again. The work continued. Her arms must have grown tired. Her breathing must have become heavier, but she kept going. Draw, carry, pour, repeat. The old servant watched in astonishment. This wasn't simply a beautiful young woman. This was a woman willing to serve without being asked twice. And as the camels drank, the servant realized his prayer was being answered before his eyes. When the camels had finished drinking, the servant brought out a gold nose ring and 2 gold bracelets. Then he asked, "Whose daughter are you?" Genesis chapter 20 for verse 23. She answered that she was the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nah, Abraham's brother. The servant's heart nearly stopped. He had traveled hundreds of miles, and God had led him directly to Abraham's family. He bowed his head, then fell to the ground and worshipped. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and faithfulness." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 27. The journey had been long. The desert had been merciless, but God had been there every step of the way. Rebekah hurried home and told her family everything. Her brother Laban heard the story and came to meet the servant. The traveler was brought into the house. His feet were washed. Food was prepared, but the servant refused to eat. "First, I must tell you why I have come." Everyone became silent. Then the old man began. He told them about Abraham. He told them about Isaac. He told them about Sarah. He told them about the oath. He told them about the journey. And finally, he told them about the prayer at the well. When he finished, the room fell silent. Bethuel and Laban looked at one another. "This thing comes from the Lord," they answered. "Here is Rebekah. Take her and go." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 50 to 51. The servant bowed again. He brought out precious gifts from Abraham's house. The family celebrated, but when morning came, A new conflict arose. They did not want Rebekah to leave so quickly. Let the young woman remain with us a few days, at least 10. Genesis chapter 20 for verse 55. But the servant knew he could not delay. The Lord has prospered my way. Send me away, that I may go to my master. Genesis chapter 20 for verse 56. Then they called Rebekah and asked her directly, "Will you go with this man?" Genesis chapter 20 for verse 58. Silence. Rebekah looked at her family, her home, everything she had ever known. Beyond those walls waited a land she had never seen, a man she had never met, a future she could not predict. She could stay, or she could go. The room waited. Then Rebekah spoke. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "I will go." Genesis chapter 20 for verse 58. Three words that changed her life. 3 words that changed Isaac's life. 3 words that would become part of the story of a nation. I will go. The caravan departed. Rebekah climbed onto the camel. Her home slowly disappeared behind her. The familiar hills became distant shadows. Then they vanished beyond the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly before her. She didn't know what waited at the end, but she went. Because courage is sometimes moving forward while trusting God with what you cannot see. Far away in Canaan, Isaac walked alone. The sun was beginning to fall. Golden light stretched across the fields. He had gone out to meditate, to pray, perhaps to remember his mother. Sarah was gone. The grief still lingered. Isaac looked toward the horizon. Then, something caught his attention. A cloud of dust, shapes moving through the distance. Camels. At the same moment, Rebekah looked ahead. She saw a lone man walking through the field. She turned to the servant. "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" Genesis chapter 20 for verse 65. The servant smiled. "That is my master." Rebekah understood. She took her veil and covered herself. The caravan moved forward. The distance between them grew smaller, until Isaac and Rebekah finally stood before one another. 2 strangers, 2 lives, 2 journeys, meeting at exactly the right moment. The servant told Isaac everything, every prayer, every miracle, every detail of how God had led him to Rebekah. Isaac looked at the woman standing before him, the woman who had crossed the wilderness, the woman who had left everything behind, the woman who had said, "I will go." He took her into his mother Sarah's tent, and there, something beautiful happened. The man who had been drowning in grief found comfort. The woman who had left her home found a new one, and 2 lives that had begun miles apart became one. The Bible gives us the ending in one breathtaking sentence. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Genesis chapter 20 for verse 67. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of the entire story. The Bible doesn't say Isaac loved her because she was beautiful. It doesn't say he loved her because of her wealth. It simply says he loved her. Rebekah's love story did not begin with a romantic meeting. It began with faith. It began with a servant kneeling beside a well, with a prayer whispered into the desert wind, with a young woman who saw a thirsty stranger and chose to serve him. It continued with 3 simple words, "I will go." And it ended with a grieving man finding comfort in the woman God had brought into his life. One prayer, one well, one act of kindness, one courageous decision, one love story. Rebekah and Isaac. A promise born in the desert. A love forged through faith. A story that would echo through generations. As the sun disappeared behind the hills of Canaan, the desert grew quiet. The wind moved softly across the fields, and beneath that fading golden sky, a new chapter of God's promise had begun. This is the story of Rebekah, the woman who said, "I will go," and the love story that began with faith.